Welcome to Mr. Williams' Social Studies class, and today we are going to talk about imperialism in India. The first thing we want to look at when we get into India is we really want to talk about the British Empire and what was the British Empire. There's a very famous saying going out there that the sun never set on the British Empire, and that is absolutely true because of the fact that basically Great Britain, the area of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland came together and basically controlled the most area in the world. And as you guys will see from the map above, there's a great deal of area that they controlled, and as a result of that, it made them the world's largest empire at the time. Even in this massive empire that Great Britain has built, probably the most important area that they controlled was India. In fact, they even went so far as to call India the jewel in the crown of the British Empire. Um, you guys can see this as we kind of discussed this earlier. Where were the explorers trying to get to? They were trying to get to India. Where was Christopher Columbus trying to get to? He was trying to get to India. And it was because of the fact that they had things like spices that none of the rest of the world had. They had access to textiles. That was some of the finest textiles in the world as we know it. And many, many other things that made it very, very valuable piece of land for the British to control. India started out as a company colony that was ruled by the East India Company. The East India Company was a very famous company in England that was basically gained control of India in the 1800s. Their main goal, obviously, with this was to make money. But as we discussed before when we talked about Africa, there is one really big problem with company colonies as it relates to their control of these foreign lands and the fact that they don't really work. So that's a great question. What did go wrong here? And basically what had occurred prior to this is that the British employed a number of Indian soldiers known as the sepoy. They issued them rifles. They made sure that they were there to help them to kind of help take care of what their needs were, to protect them. And so the British East India Company gave them a salary and everything else like that in order to help them out. The problem resulted in is basically, if you guys know anything about any of these types of rifles that were used at the time, and that was basically there were muskets, and muskets needed to be basically loaded by loading them through the barrel of the gun. And in order to get all of the stuff in there, they needed to be able to grease the barrel. Okay, and at this point in time, what would occur is that the sepoy, or the soldiers at this point in time, would basically bite off what they called a cartridge, and this cartridge would then be shoved down the muzzle of the gun, and then it would kind of grease the barrel of the gun in order for the ball in order to get into the gun in order to make it a little bit more faster and smoother. Problem is that the grease that was used had to be some form of a fat that could be ingested. So petroleum and anything else like that would not be very good because it ended up poisoning these soldiers. And basically as a result of that, they would use animal fat. And if you guys remember anything that we've talked about from our look at Hinduism, when we talked about ancient India, you'll realize that a lot of Hindus are vegetarians because they view all life as being sacred. And the British didn't tell them this. So when they found out, they basically became very, very angry and then began to revolt against the East India Company. And as we've talked about before with this, these companies are not prepared to help solve these particular problems as it relates to fighting back against uprisings and rebellions and so on and so forth. So they approached the British government to help them. And the British knew at this point in time that this was going to be their in to gain control of India. So they step in, put down the rebellion, and then basically as a result of that, step in and take control of India as one of their own colonies. And this reign or rule became known as the Raj, or the rule or reign of India by the British, and this is basically the Raj is a word in Hindu. So what are some of the benefits that were given to Great Britain as controlling of India? As you guys can see from the scrolling messages up there, basically they used them in order to support their economy by basically giving them a market to sell goods. Also, it was a great place to collect raw materials, as we've talked about before with the spices and the cotton for textiles and so on. Also, like I said, they used them also for creating the textiles. Like I said, were some of the finest in the world. So this is a couple of huge things that were made Great Britain very wealthy as a result of it. Not only did England benefit from this relationship, but India also did as well too. They were able to basically through this process, Great Britain started some new law codes that ended the caste system, which was really good because that was obviously a form of oppression going on in India at the time. They improved transportation because they wanted to make better trade avenues, and also probably one of the big ones is they bettered the education system in India as well too for the upper class and the elite. Probably the biggest thing that the Indians received from the British was the idea of nationalism. And as we talked about before in class, nationalism is the pride in one's country. They saw how much, and basically how this was basically transferred was all these people from India that were sent to Britain to get educated also learned that there was a lot of pride in Great Britain, a lot of pride in their country, and that was why they wanted to improve their empire and such. And so, like I said, the Indians took this and basically used this and began to start to develop a pride in India as a country. And as a result of that, we're going to start to see people like Gandhi, people like Nehru, and so on, Muhammad Jinnah, and so on, kind of basically deciding at this point in time that, hey, you know what? We can rule India for ourselves, and that's going to lead into India seeking its own independence.